Hello, hello, hello. How you guys doing? This is really a very special day here. June 5th celebration in Egypt. That's when the Naksa, when the Egyptian military was defeated in 6 days by the Israelis' aggression in 1967. Things change a lot. Things look very different now. I think Egypt now has been the best strategic asset for Israel. Sisi. Arab leaders and Arab Zionists are tripping over themselves, try to normalize relationship with the Zionists and Occupier and the people who are really building settlement and oppressing the Palestinian for more than 70 years. But things, something happened on that day. You all know now by this young man. He was even a security, not even an army officer on the border between Egypt and Israel. We don't know the details yet. Sometimes he's going after smuggler crossing the Israelis border and killing 3 Israelis. And the Egyptians are very vague and quiet. Of course, the Israelis put in pieces by pieces, try to squeeze everything on al-Sisi. So we get bits and pieces. So this normalizations between states and Arab leaders and Arab Zionists with Israel. Now you can see this is not working. As long the Palestinians are oppressed, as long the Palestinians' rights are denied, as long the Palestinians are victimized every day, a normalization is not going to work. Billions of dollars put into this, bribing Arab leaders to have normal relationship with Israel. That this young man, 22 years old, who crossed the border according to some story, and killing 3 Israelis officer or soldiers without any provocation. He is not knowing for political activities or Islamic appetite. He's just an average Egyptian, young Egyptian, like millions of Egyptians. No interest in politics, no interest in religion that much. Just an average Egyptian. I'm sure the Israelis were taking notes about this. If this was an extremist, brotherhood, smuggler, criminal, we can understand the motive. But this is just somebody who had enough and heard enough about what the Israelis doing to the Palestinian and how the Egyptians, participating in all of this. The only thing strike me of all of this, the things that my young man posted on website when Biden keeps saying we are with Israel, Israel, and this guy posted Allah or God was a Palestinian. That explains a lot of it. Anyway, that's not what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about a traveling group from the LGBT went to Egypt and came back to talk about it. And we're going to talk about the head of that traveling agent in Generation G, Jeff, and I'm sure he's right there. I'm admitting him as we speak. Jeff Gundvaldson. I hope I got his last name. But I met him in one of this celebration. Welcome, the Egyptian. From your end, it looks good. The brand behind you looks, you can see it. I was doing a little things. I usually do a little thing about, current events, a few here and there, but not much. But I haven't really got a chance to introduce your company and the background. And I was doing some reading about it. Generation G was established in 2011, like 12, 13 years ago, right?
Correct.
I think the questions, and I think you entertained that question on your website. Why brand G?
Sure. No, I'd be happy to. That's an excellent question. I think, so much has changed in such a good way in the world, especially in this country, in the United States, for LGBT persons. I think that we've gained a lot of rights with gay marriage, and the transgender movement is going forward, and so there are a lot more rights for people, and I think it's a lot more comfortable for gay and lesbian people as well throughout the world. But there are still certain places in the world that are a little bit unsafe or are certainly not quite as friendly for gay and lesbian people. But this really gay and lesbian specific and for the whole community really got its start back in the guess the mid 80s. So I before Brand G, I was at a company called RSVP Vacations, and that was really the first of its kind, offering cruises specifically for gay and lesbian people. And at that time, it was during the height of the AIDS epidemic, number one, and before many of the rights that we enjoy today as a gay community. So the gentleman who started the company had his own travel business and was one of the biggest travel agencies in the entire country, issuing corporate tickets, essentially air tickets and travel. And he was a gay man, and he and his husband at the time went on vacation down in Key West, Florida, and they were discriminated against, and people actually verbally assaulted them, and it almost came close to physical attack on them. And it was at that time when Kevin Mosher, the founder of the company, said, you know what, there's got to be some place where we as a community can go and we can feel safe and welcome. And so he started a search, and he started to search for land resorts, and he searched high and low for any resort anywhere that would take the gay and lesbian community, and he couldn't find one, quite honestly, very very sadly. Couldn't find any that would take a gay and lesbian group at that time. So next he started searching for the cruise lines, and he finally found a cruise line. Bermuda Star, I think, was the name of the line at the time. Not a very glamorous one, mind you, but he did find one that was willing to take a gay and lesbian cruise.
When you
And I
say
guess that's where it all started. And it was really quite an amazing experience in the beginning, because that was really, kind of the first of its kind, where people could come together, be together as a community, not worry about being discriminated against. And now you fast forward all these years later, where we do have all these rights, and kind of what you're alluding to, why do we need to be more divided? Should we be working on coming together? Which is an excellent question. But I think, the answer to that is because I think there is still that comfort in community, just as much as there is, Jewish heritage cruises, maybe people who like rock and roll music, people who like classical music. So there's affinity groups out there, and one of them being for the LGBT community and for people that are like-minded that can all come together. And an analogy I like to use a lot is when my husband and I Troy and I sit down for dinner on one of our cruises, we don't have to explain to the people at the table, that we're gay. First of all, no, we're not brothers. We are husband and husband, and we don't have to have that whole conversation. We walk on board, and immediately there's that comfortability and that familiarity amongst all the people we're traveling with, and we can just jump on the cruise and enjoy ourselves and be our true selves without any worry about what people are going to think about us, whether they're going to be comfortable with us, if we're going to be comfortable with them. So I think that's the answer to the question, part of it. And then the other answer, I would say, is what I alluded to earlier, that there are still places in the world where I think it's less than comfortable, I think, for people in the gay and lesbian community and transgender community to travel on their own. And I think that's where we come in. And some of those places, it's maybe not even the gay and lesbian issue. Sometimes it's the comfort level of, saying, going to India. And do I really want to go there on my own? First of all, because it's a challenging place to go, especially if you've never been there. So I think there's that comfort of just knowing you're with a group, and all the arrangements are going to be taken care of. And then added to that, it's not necessarily the most gay friendly place in the world. So then I think people have that perception. And then if they go as a group, there's that added security of being with the group and being with the like-minded travelers, and know they're going to be taken care of.
uh, well, let's give some background why we're having this conversation. I met you at the women's club where there was an Egyptian dinner there, and that Egyptian dinner was for an Egyptian tour guides that a group of that your company sent to Egypt met her there, and they were impressed. That was in 2021, I think, and it took them like a couple of years to manage to bring her back to
Mhm.
speak to the women's club member about Egypt. I know the Egyptian. I mean, the American are fascinated by Egyptian in museum. You know, did the Egyptian when
Definitely. Yes, that's fair to say.
and I'm being harsh here, but I have a show. I've been talking to American as a live Egyptian out of museum for more than 20 years. I never been invited for a dinner, but what was so impressed? What was impressed your group? I'm not sure you were with them or not, but what was impressive about that young lady, not young lady, but that Egyptian lady that you felt like the some other American that they haven't gone with on a trip, they should listen to her.
Yeah, I was on that trip, with our guests with Sagi, and actually I first met her when my husband and I and my business partner went to do our initial site visit for Egypt to help plan the trip that we were going to have with our guests that we're going to sell to our guests. And so that's where we first met her, and at that time it wasn't decided that she was going to be our guide with our guests on the trip. But I think that something happened when we met her. So Sagi had this background where she had been traveling to the United States years prior to us meeting her, but she had a son with some medical conditions that needed treatment. So she, came to the United States for treatment. And so I think because of her time in the United States, she developed some sensibilities, I guess we'll say, that I think made it very easy for us as Americans, and particularly, myself and my husband as Midwesterners to relate to her. So I think she has this wonderful background from Egypt and an extremely intelligent woman who, has all that training in Egyptology. But meanwhile, she has this other side to her that I think developed before she came to Minnesota, I'm quite sure, but I think it's part of experiences in life where I think she had the challenges with her son, with the medical issues, which, really, I think caused her to go within in herself and to develop that heart, I think, and then coming to the United States and developing those sensibilities. And I think those two come together and made a really an amazing human being, as well as someone who is extremely intelligent and knows all about Egypt. So I think we really, developed this affinity for her when we met her. And so when we were in the final stages of planning the trip, I said to our tour operator in Egypt, I said, we absolutely need to have Sagi come and be one of our guides on the trip. So I just said, we really like her. She's, great at what she does. And I think she's going to really relate to the guests. And that really happened when our guests met her. And it helped that I think we had a number of people from Minnesota. And so we had that connection going as well, who just really became attached to her and got to know her not only as their guide, but also as their friend. And I think that's one thing I always tell the guides when I talk to them. I say, it's great if you can talk all about the dates and the history and, all the background, all that. I mean, that's all wonderful stuff. And our guests like that to a certain point. But I think what they like even more is when they can go to some place like Egypt and feel like they've taken a piece of that place home with them, that personal piece, and not just the history and all of that. I think they want more. They want that personal connection.
I know your traveling service exclusively for gay, lesbian, and LGBT. All the group exclusively. Everybody knows this is your friend. There's gonna be understanding. He's gay like you or lesbian like you. How about the people that you go there? Do they know this is a gay lesbian group?
Certainly the local tour operator that we're working with. So generally when we go to a destination like Egypt, we will have a destination management company, as they're called, that will handle the majority of the details. And in some cases, a cruise line, which we did in this case, the Nile cruise. So they are all very aware that it is a gay and lesbian group. Now, does every shopkeeper that we encounter know, or does every person in all of the different many amazing sites there know? They don't. And so you're not completely traveling in this little isolated bubble. You have to get out there and experience, all that Egypt has to offer, and that takes you outside of that bubble for sure. But I think, we want at least the majority of the people that our guests are going to encounter know and understand fully that this is a gay and lesbian group. And I think, especially we go out and we do site visits for all of our trips, no matter where in the world they are. But I think I myself went into Egypt with a bit of hesitation and apprehension just because it was unknown to me, and there is the LGBT factor, and are we going to be welcome there as a gay and lesbian group? So that's part of what we really wanted to suss out going in advance is, not is Egypt a worthwhile destination, because I think that's easily answered. Yes, it is a worthwhile destination. There's much to see and do, but would we as a gay and lesbian group in particular feel welcome, feel comfortable? And I have to say that after that first trip, I walked away feeling like it really wasn't going to be an issue. I mean, there are certain things that I think our guests needed to be aware of and to watch out for, but I walked away feeling very comfortable that we could have a great time in Egypt, and that we were one.
The group was raising the same issue, the kind of hesitation and hostile place for gay and lesbian. And I was making a point, and I always do that as an Arab man myself. When people raise these questions, and that goes even from the 80s, that couple of gay men walking, holding hand in Cairo or by the pyramids or Alexandria might be something not to frown about, as if they walk in holding hand in Des Moines or Iowa or a small town, wherever. So I've always say Arab men socially gay. They hug and kiss, and the intimacy is mostly between men. So it's not a far-fetched. Other Arab country, they think, Arab gay community, they think this is a welcoming, not a hostile place. You spend 3 weeks or 2 weeks in Egypt. What is your reaction?
Honestly, it's a very good reaction. I think, first of all, I would say that the culture in that part of the world in general is quite a bit different than the American culture, for sure. So I think that's part of it right there. There is a bit of culture shock there for sure. And so for us to, as you say, see two men walking and holding hands and hugging, that type of thing, and that level of intimacy, it's counterintuitive, based on our beliefs and based on maybe some of the laws that are on the books, that are maybe not as favorable to the LGBT community. So when we see that, it doesn't really register, it doesn't make sense to us, I think, going there. But again, I think that the experience in the end is that people are extremely friendly and welcoming. And to go back to that point of would I feel comfortable, I think, walking down the street holding my husband's hand in Egypt? No, I wouldn't be. But would I be in Des Moines or even Minneapolis? No, I wouldn't necessarily. And I think part of that is my issue, of course, and my level of comfortability based on where I come from, for sure. So that is not a cultural norm in this country whatsoever. And it is in places like that, which I think is amazing and great that men can show that level of intimacy. And so it is a bit of a contradiction, I think, to go with the laws that are on the books that are maybe more not as LGBT friendly, and then you see it in person.
Yeah, it's still people are people, but
Right.
as somebody who left Egypt 40 years ago, I'm fearful to go back to Egypt. Not
Really?
because of gay, lesbian, whatever. I think some people are not even allowed to go back to Egypt with their political activity or religious affiliation. Thousands of Egyptians are in diaspora there in Turkey and all over the places. And so when there are some 5 stars hotel or dining places, high-end places, will not allow Egyptian women that wearing hijab. They won't allow her in, but they will allow gay and lesbian in. So things are really, it's not black and white or straightforward. There is a lot of complications in so many different ways. And so have you noticed any of this? You know, the actual people on the ground and the livelihood, and you know, I mean, when I go to Egypt a few years, for instance, I find a tank next to, you know, park next to a hotel. When you go to the tour, there is always security with you walking. That gives you that this uncomfortable feel about enjoying yourself in those places.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's something that we warn our guests about in advance is when you get there, there is going to be security. There's going to be a security guard on your bus. You are going to see a military presence. And that is something we're definitely not used to seeing. But for me, I think how I relate it to guests is that they are there for our safety, and they're not there because it's inherently dangerous necessarily everywhere we're traveling. But there were issues, you know, in the past with tourist security in Egypt, and that was the reason for the implementation of, you know, the security guards on buses and things like that. So it's a proactive measure on their part to protect us as tourists, which I think is a very good thing. You know, is there some potential for trouble there? Of course, there is, as there is anywhere in travel. I mean, I think no matter where you go in the world, there is some sense of I guess danger or adventure or whatever you want to call it, and maybe not the adventure you want to find, but you know, did I feel unsafe there? I would say no. I really did not feel unsafe. I mean, I felt reassured more by the military presence, by the security, than I did feel insecure.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it would not. You know, I, we have a complicated relationship with military and security, but you know, when in this, I think we're up at the end here, and enjoying meeting you at Egyptian dinner, and I just want to share one thing with you. That's the only time in that Egyptian dinner, that women's club. That's the only time I've seen koshari, which is street food, served with. This is this is a this is a blasphemous. I don't know whose decision was and whatever happened, but serving koshari with lamb, that's a first, ma'am. And I however make that decision, done something has never been done before. So, but appreciate your time, founder of Generation G, which is a traveling agent exclusively for GLPT. They took a trip to Egypt, and they actually survived it, and they came to talk about it, and they wouldn't mind. Would you do it again, Jeff?
We are doing it. Well, we have done it again this past March, and we are doing it again in March of 2024. So most definitely, yes. One of our most popular trips and one of our quickest selling trips, actually.
And good luck with your venture, because it's not just Egypt. You know, it's a challenging time and challenging world now these days. So thank you so much for sharing the thoughts and thoughtful reflection on your trip to Egypt.
Yeah, it was very nice to meet you at the dinner, and I'm glad we were able to connect again. And thank you for making time for me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, so once again, my name is Zaghi. In Arabic, it means the peace of Egypt. Graduated from Faculty of Tourism and Hotels Guide Section, University of Alexandria. I have a master's degree in maritime archaeology and underwater cultural heritage. Considered the first guide in Egypt to do this link, as we have treasures in our country, under land and under seawater as well, which is quite different and interesting field. Thank you so much. Working as a tour guide is not only my work, it's my passion, it's my love to the country. I love traveling around the world as well as welcoming guests from all over the world to Egypt. Before starting, please allow me once again to thank the sponsors for this event.